Mirage Tank. The Mirage Tank is an allied ambush tank that disguises itself as a tree when standing still. In the game, that makes it deadly, because enemies do not see the threat until it fires. In real life, the tree disguise would be the weak part. Modern drones, thermal cameras, and sensors would probably spot the heat, shape, or movement. But the idea underneath is brilliant. A real Mirage tank would not pretend to be a tree. It would use advanced camouflage, heat reduction, decoys, and sensor masking to hide from drones and thermal optics. Enemy crews would hate it, because it turns every forest line into a possible firing position. The tank's real weapon is doubt. The Mirage tank is not scary because it is invisible. It is scary because the enemy has to treat ordinary terrain like it might shoot back. And that leads straight into the next allied vehicle, because if the Mirage tank is about hiding the threat, the Prism Tank is about making the threat impossible to ignore. Prism Tank. The Prism Tank is an allied energy weapon vehicle that fires a focused beam instead of a normal shell. In Red Alert 2, the beam can hit one target and spread damage to others nearby. It looks like the future of tank warfare, clean, precise, and terrifying. In real life, it would not be a magic anti-tank laser. The biggest problems would be power, heat, smoke, dust, weather, and how long the beam has to stay on target. A battlefield is not a clean laboratory, but the concept is not useless. A realistic Prism Tank would probably become a directed energy support vehicle. It would burn drones, damage sensors, blind optics, and protect formations from small aerial threats. Enemy soldiers would not fear it because their tank suddenly explodes. They would fear it because their drones start falling, their cameras stop working, and their targeting systems become unreliable. The Prism Tank would not replace cannon fire. It would protect the machines that still use cannon fire. And where the Prism Tank attacks with light, the Soviet Tesla Tank attacks with electricity. Tesla Tank. The Tesla Tank is a Soviet vehicle that fires electrical charges instead of shells. In-game, it feels like a lightning tank, short range, brutal damage, and pure Soviet mad science. In the real world, a tank that throws lightning bolts at armored vehicles makes very little sense. Electricity does not behave like a clean projectile, and armored vehicles are not easy to zap like game units. But the real version becomes interesting if you change the role. A realistic Tesla tank would be an electronic attack vehicle. It would target drones, sensors, radios, exposed electronics, and maybe lightly protected systems using microwave or radio frequency energy. Enemy crews would not see blue lightning and explode. They would lose drone feeds, comms, targeting assistance, and situational awareness. That is still terrifying. The Tesla tank would not be a tank killer. It would be a battlefield blackout machine. But sometimes the best vehicle is not the one with the strangest weapon. Sometimes it is the one that can change jobs fast. That is where the Allied IFV comes in. IFV. The Allied IFV is one of the smartest vehicles in Red Alert 2. Its weapon changes depending on the infantry inside. Put in one unit, it gets one role. Put in another, it becomes something else. That is obviously game logic. Real vehicles do not magically transform because a different soldier climbs in. But the idea is extremely modern. Real armies love modular vehicles. One chassis, different weapons, sensors, air defense systems, missile packages, drone gear, or support equipment. A realistic IFV would not change instantly in the field. It would use mission kits. One version could carry troops, another could shoot drones, another could launch anti-tank missiles, another could act as a repair or command vehicle. Enemy forces would hate it because they could not assume what it was. Is it transport? Air defense? Anti-armor? Support? The IFV's strength is uncertainty. It is not the strongest vehicle in the game, but it may be one of the most believable. V3 Launcher. The V3 Launcher is Soviet long-range rocket artillery. It is weak up close, but dangerous from distance. That is exactly how rocket artillery should work. In real life, a V3-style launcher would never survive if it sat still for long. Drones would find it, counter-battery fire would chase it, precision weapons would hunt it. So the modern version needs one rule: fire and move. A realistic V3 launcher would use guided rockets, fast deployment, drone targeting, and shoot-and-scoot tactics. It would launch, relocate, reload, and disappear before the enemy response arrives. Enemy troops would not fear seeing the launcher. they would fear never seeing it. Because when artillery is working properly, the first sign is the impact, not the vehicle. The V3 is one of the most realistic ideas in Red Alert 2 once modernized, but the next vehicle goes in the opposite direction. Apocalypse Tank. The Apocalypse Tank is the Soviet fantasy of brute force. Huge armor, huge weapons, ground attack, anti-air attack. It is designed to feel like a battlefield boss. If it appeared in real life, every enemy unit nearby would react immediately. Infantry would avoid it. Light vehicles would run. Tank crews would call it out as a priority target. But the same things that make it frightening also make it vulnerable. A vehicle this big needs fuel, bridges, recovery vehicles, transport planning, engineers, repairs, and constant protection from drones and top attack weapons. The Apocalypse Tank would be terrifying in a planned assault with full support. Alone, it becomes a giant target. Modern war punishes anything that is large, loud, and easy to find. So the Apocalypse Tank is powerful, but not practical. It is what happens when a faction believes more armor and more guns can replace logistics.